this week's edition of Sit Down with Sarah. I'm Sarah Gale, and joining us today is Bradley Board, and we're going to discuss his unique experience with making it through to the audition round for two of TV's most popular talent competitions, The Voice and American Idol. Okay, so before we get into that, Bradley, let's start from the beginning. So how did you first get involved with singing? Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Sit Down with Sarah. I'm Sarah Gale, and joining us today is Bradley Board, and we're going to discuss his unique experience of being able to audition for two of TV's most popular talent competitions, The Voice and American Idol. But before we get into that, Bradley, let's start from the very beginning. So how did you first begin with singing?
Well, I've always been singing since I was a little kid. I went through, elementary school, middle school, and when you get to high school, a lot of high schoolers, they're partying, they're going out and having all that kind of fun, and I'm in my room at home just singing. And I figured out through choir teachers I was actually pretty good, and I made all-state choir, and I got to do some great experiences with that. And was told one day, hey, maybe you should do the Voice, the American Idol, and I was like, hey, let's do it.
So did you have any mentor in particular that pushed you?
Yeah, my choir teacher through high school, probably one of the most influential people I've ever met. When I started high school, I probably wasn't well liked. I was really stubborn. I didn't really know how to behave, and she helped me mature as a person and as a musician, and definitely helped me become a better person.
Which talent competition did you go for first?
American Idol was first.
Okay,
Yeah.
and when was that?
It was the summer in between my sophomore and junior year of high school.
Okay, so can you try and walk us through the process of how American Idol goes? Because I'm sure it looks different on TV to us viewers.
Yeah, it's way different. I got there the day before about 4 a.m. to register, and so we came back about 24 hours later, about 2 to 3 a.m. sometime around that in the morning, sat on a empty street at night, and then, out there where people shout, "Welcome to American Idol," and they finally let us into the arena at 8, sat around there, and they kept doing some more TV stuff, and we got there pretty late for being there at 2 a.m., so we had to wait for all these people to go, and finally get down there. They would send you into different rounds of producers, about 11 or 12 producers, 4 people per producer, and you would sing, and at the end of all 4 people, they would decide who goes through and who doesn't.
So based on the 2 different experiences that you had, I know we didn't get to go over The Voice, but if you had the opportunity to do it again, do you think you would?
Yeah, 100%. I would definitely think I would do The Voice again. American Idol's in its last season, so I kind of miss that train. But, The Voice was a much different experience, much more unique, and I enjoyed that honestly a lot more than American Idol. So I'll probably at some point go back, and we'll see what happens through there.
Okay, well, great. We all hope to keep chasing your dream, and if we see you up on that TV, we'll definitely all be rooting for you, Bradley. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Gale.
Hello, and I'm Bradley Board, and welcome to the boardroom. Joining me Hello, and I'm Bradley Board, and welcome to the boardroom. Joining me today is Lauren Dedman to talk to us about how she did cheer and dance through her childhood and all the way through high school. So, Lauren, what kind of got you started in dance?
What got me started is I've never been a sports girl, like into sports to play it.
Mhm.
So I've always been a girly girl, always when I was little. I started when I was 3. In tutus and ballerina costumes, that's always been me. So my mom saw that from an early age and she just decided to put me into dance.
And how long did that dancing last for you?
I did tap, ballet, and jazz from the age of 3 to 11. And it was an everyday thing. I would go to the studio to practice this for 5 days a week, and then we would have a recital on Father's Day each year.
Okay, and you said that you at one point during high school transitioned into cheer from dance to cheer. What was kind of that like, and what was the differences? Anything that was really hard to grasp at first?
Yes, with cheer it was more physical. Since I did dance for, I'm guessing 7 years, it was just tap is not stressful. Like it's just you learn it and it's easy. But with cheer, it's competitive cheer. So that's when I got my first black eye. So it was more physical for me. So it was on a whole different level, but it was still fun because I had a little bit of experience from dancing, so I knew how to take instructions, and from there it felt natural. So.
So you would say, like, I guess the stress of being a competitive cheer, is that kind of why you decided not to do it in college and not to kind of go further with it?
Yes, and I always felt like I was so busy all the time, like having to go to the dance studio, every day for 5 days a week. And then from high school, I was going to practice every day. So it's just like I just needed a break. And like going to tumbling classes, it just took so much of my time that I just wanted to go into college just focusing on my future career.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we sure hope that future career definitely works out in the way you want it to. And thank you for joining us today here in the boardroom. I'm Bradley Board.
Okay, dude, don't slump. They kept saying to get you to sit up, and I kept trying to do this, like, put your chest up. That was only 225.
Hello, and I'm Bradley Board, and welcome to the Boardroom. I'm joined today by Lauren Dedman, who's going to talk to us a little bit about how cheer and dance went through her life. So, how did you kind of get started in dance, and what made you kind of want to do it?
I started dancing when I was 3. What made me do it was my mother. She just saw something in me when I was young. I've never been the athletic type, so I've always been such a girly girl. So I've always had tutus on, the ballerina leotard. So she just decided to put me into dance, and I did dance from the age of 3 to 11.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, from 3 to 11, those 8 years, how long did that make you want to do that, like long term, like that?
It was something that I always loved to do. During those 8 years, I did tap, ballet, and jazz, and it was just something that I loved. It was something that just kept me, like wanting to learn more about and just continue to keep dancing. So it was just really fun. And since I did start at such a young age, I was just like, that was all I knew. So it took up majority of my childhood because I would have to go to studio 5 days a week. And so we would do this for 2 hours every day, and we would have our recital on Father's Day each year.
You said you made the move over to cheer when you started high school, and how was that kind of transformation for you, and kind of how did that affect you?
Yes, I started to cheer because the studio that I've been with for that long, for the 8 years that I did do dance, closed down. So I just figured I needed to do something to start that back up. So cheer was on a whole different level because it's more physical, and I was in competitive cheer. That was when I received my first black eye. So it was like something that I was not used to, but I mean, I still had fun with it.
And why did you not progress through this in college?
I chose not to do cheer in college because I felt like dance cheer just took up so much time of every day, like everyday life. It was just that's all I had to do. So going into college, I just wanted to focus on my career, on my schoolwork. So I just felt like I needed a break from all of that because I've been doing it since 3 to 18. So I just needed a break.
I lost where it was. Sorry.
Dude, why did you? Keep going.
What?
Keep going.
Oh, I thought we were practicing.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Dude, that was like perfect.
I thought we were practicing that.
No, everything's not a practice anymore.
Oh, I wasn't told that.
It's okay. It's
Dude,
okay.
no, you were like, okay.
I feel like I've done that. Welcome back to The Low Show. I'm your host, Lauren Dedman, and joining us today is Sarah Gill. Growing up, sports wasn't her thing, but she did sing. How old were you when you first started singing?
So I was about 6 years old, and if I can do the math right or think back to it right, I think it's maybe third grade or second or third grade. Yeah.
Okay. What made you start singing?
So I did a talent show in the second or third grade, whichever grade it was. I did a talent show and I sang Landslide. And after that, I went back to my parents and all my friends, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, you were so good. You should keep doing this." And I thought they were just being supportive. And so I did the talent show again the next year, and I did a Harder Song by Christina Aguilera. And same thing happened, and they were like, "No, I'm serious. You should pursue this." And so that was kind of the point. I know I was really young at the time, but that was still kind of the point where I was like, maybe I should try this out and just see how it goes.
Okay, so what studio did you go to?
So I sang at a studio in Dallas. It's called Septian Entertainment Group, and I was there for 12 years, and it was in Addison. So it wasn't in Dallas, but it was in like a suburb of Dallas.
Okay, can you describe like a typical day for you at the studio?
Yes. So I would go in probably on the weekends around 8 a.m. because I was in private.
Welcome back to The Low Show. I'm your host, Lauren Dedman, and joining us today is Sarah Gill. Growing up, sports wasn't her thing, but singing was. How old were you when you first started singing?
So I was 6 years old, and if I remember correctly, that was either second or third grade for me.
Okay, so when Welcome back to The Low Show. I'm your host, Lauren Dedman, and joining us today is Sarah Gill. Growing up, sports wasn't her thing, but singing was. How old were you when you first started singing?
So I was 6 years old.
Welcome back to The Low Show. I'm your host, Lauren Dedman, and joining us today is Sarah Gill. Growing up, instead of sports, Sarah sang. How old were you when you started singing?
I was 6 years old, so if I remember correctly, that was either second
Welcome back to the Low Show. I'm your host, Lauren Dedman, and joining us today is Sarah Gill. Instead of Ooh, I'm sorry, guys. Can we start over for me? That one time, you can't get mad. You cannot get mad.
I am. Don't stop.
Okay.
Keep going.
That was one time out of the 5.
Never stop.
Three, two, one.
Welcome back to the Low Show. I'm your host, Lauren Dedman, and joining us today is Sarah Gill. Growing up, instead of sports, Sarah chose to sing. So, how old were you when you started singing?
I was 6 years old when I started singing, so if I remember correctly, that was either second or third grade for me.
Okay, so when did you start to take singing seriously?
I think it was when I did the talent show when I was 6 years old. I sang Landslide by the Dixie Chicks. And I came off the stage and I went up to my parents and my friends, and they all were giving me all this praise and saying, "You were so good, like you should keep doing this." And so the following year I did it again, and I chose A Harder Song by Christina Aguilera. And the same thing kind of happened. And after that, I figured, well, I really don't like sports that much, so everyone else did sports, so I might as well choose something different and pursue singing.
Okay, so were you ever in a studio?
Yes, I was. It was called Septian Entertainment Group, and that same year, so the same year as my second talent show, I joined it. And you do have to audition, and it's a studio in Dallas, and they only take about 30 students.
Okay, can you describe a typical day at the studio?
Yes, on the weekends is when I spent most of my time there. I would go in around 8 a.m. and sometimes I would leave at 4, and then sometimes I wouldn't leave until 6 o'clock at night. Because I was in private school during the day, and everyone else that went to that same studio was homeschooled, so they got to spend a lot more time working than I did. But I would go in and you do vocal warm-ups, and then depending on what I wanted to do that day, I could work on instruments, which primarily I worked on the piano. And then after that, I would go with my main producer, and then she would help me pick a list of probably 5 songs, and we would work on one song the entire day, going through every single word, the way I sang it, and everything like that. So it kind of varied, but weekends was definitely when I spent the most time there.
Okay, so what made you want to stop?
I stopped when I was a junior in high school, I believe, junior or senior, and like I said, I was the only one in school. Everyone else was homeschooled. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of money, and a lot of time to be able to succeed in that industry. And so for that reason, it was never something I thought I could carry out for as long as everyone else and with as much dedication as everyone else. So it's still something that I love to do as a hobby, but otherwise there were other things I wanted to pursue when I left for college.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you guys. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
and I only look at her.
Hello, welcome to In the Know. I'm Whitney Winkler. Today we have a very special guest, our own Caroline Cobb, who recently took a trip that she claims changed her life. Caroline, where did you go and why was it so special?
Well, I studied abroad for the first time. I had never been out of the country before. And so I went to Florence, Italy, and it was just spectacular. I mean, I did what's called an external program, so I didn't go through the University of Arkansas. So I was completely on my own, but it was amazing. I made friends all over the world, and my roommates, like I have friends in New York and California and Oregon, and it's so cool having that opportunity to have this life-changing experience and go on an adventure with people I've never met.
So should more students invest in this experience?
Oh, absolutely. I learned so much about myself. I became so much more confident, better with directions. It's crazy because you're over there. You don't have service on your phone or anything, and you have to get your way around and just learn how to basically communicate with an entirely different language. And so it's definitely an amazing experience that I think everyone should have the opportunity.
Was it a difficult process to get involved?
Not quite. It was a lot of tedious paperwork and stuff, but the University of Arkansas's Study Abroad office helped out tremendously. They would make sure I was up to date on all of my paperwork and walked me through the entire process and gave me all my deadlines, and they were extremely helpful, and it's totally worth it. Don't let the sign-up process scare you away.
Right. What cities do you recommend? You went to Italy, right?
Right.
What was the best city?
Okay, you have to go to the Amalfi Coast if you go to Italy. It is breathtaking. It's these amazing buildings that are just built into the sides of the cliffs, and it is so colorful. There's lemon trees everywhere. The water is crystal blue, and it's gorgeous. But that's definitely the #1 spot in Italy I would recommend.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Well, once again, I'm Whitney Winkler, and you're now in the know. This is so terrible.
Then you have to wink.
Oh, am I done?
Yay! Woo! In the know. Good evening and welcome to Caroline Lately. I'm your host, Caroline Cobb. Today we have Whitney Winkler, the producer of Razorback Reels. Good evening and welcome to Caroline Lately. I'm your host, Caroline Cobb. Today we have Whitney Winkler, the producer of the late night series Razorback Reels. Whitney, why don't you tell us a little bit about the show?
Well, it's a student-ran show here at the U of A. It's all about movies and television and everything in between, what students are watching, what they recommend, and we also talk about awards and just pretty much everything that has to do with movies and television.
That's awesome. So how'd you get involved with the show?
Well, I started out as a audio. I did sound last year, and then just through hard work, I was promoted to producer, and now I get to help create the content of the show.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How's that transition been from volunteering to becoming the producer of the show?
Yeah, it's been really rewarding, I think. I mean, you finally get to see all your work be put on the screen, and you get to sort of, I don't know, it's definitely an accomplishment, and it hasn't been stressful at all. I don't understand when people say it's stressful. I really enjoy it.
Right. Well, that's great. So, what can this show do for your future career?
I am a broadcast journalism major, and so I think having this experience of being producer is going to be very instrumental in creating a good job in the future.
Absolutely, that's awesome. So can students at the University of Arkansas come help out, or what can they do?
Absolutely. We're always looking for volunteers. If anyone's ever interested in getting involved, I strongly encourage that they come down at 7:30 on Wednesdays, and we will find them a job to do, and then maybe someday they can be producer.
That's awesome. So do you have any favorite series that you like to discuss or anything?
Well, actually, this week we are talking all about cartoons.
Ooh.
I know. It's perfect for midterms coming up,
Right.
and we're also going to be discussing a lot of things that I've never even heard of, like animes. So we're definitely broadening everyone's horizons.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
each week is a learning experience.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Whitney. That's all the time we have for today. I'm your host, Caroline Cobb. Check us out next time.